But when I sat down specifically for guidance on these two questions, I felt like I was with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, and then Samuel. And I've worked with Samuel a few times. I'll never forget the first time that I did a meditation and he came through as a guide for me. This is relatively new, I think, within the last year. And this has been something that I don't think I've shared. I may have, but I don't think that I have shared that Samuel came in. And so if you want to research a little bit on Samuel, well, I know I did talk about this in the Embrace Your Spiritual Gifts class that I taught, but I can't remember if I've talked about it like on the membership or anywhere publicly. But anyway, so Samuel came in for me, I should say, as a guide. I want to say about a year ago. Again, you guys, time is so weird right now. I don't really remember, but at any rate, these four were the ones that showed up today when I was trying to get confirmation and clarity about how to answer these member questions. Because again, if it's a member question like something on coaching or whatever that I can just answer, of course I just do. I always pray before everything anyway to make sure I'm getting divine guidance, but I really wanted to be clear on this one because I felt some energies around this. It's such a deep subject, you guys, but I just want to read what came through specifically this morning, and then I'm going to tell you the questions and we're going to dive in. I feel like this could be like, grab a notebook, see what pings for you, maybe write down some notes and see where this can help you with growth, right? And that's personal growth and spiritual growth. Okay. So as I sat down, well, I was already in prayer meditation this morning, but I had new guides come in. So earlier this morning, it was more of my whole spirit team. This was like a specific little conference that we had around these member questions. So again, this is Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, and Samuel. And this is what they said. There is an element of religiosity in the air. The darkness will try to use this energy to their advantage. Until one can truly understand their divine authority, the darkness can manipulate and intimidate. Being saved by grace and protected by God, having Jesus carry you, is only part of the process. At some point, you need to be strong enough to walk alongside instead of being carried. You are meant to have the courage of Daniel. That was kind of, in a nutshell, that's what I wrote down. That's what they actually spoke. Now, within that, you guys know that when they're giving me these messages, I write down the exact words, but then they also give me like images and feelings. And so I want to break that down now. So I know that I've been feeling this word religiosity has been coming up for like the last few weeks, and I haven't been able to really pinpoint what my guides meant by that. So I need to look into the astrology. I think it's Neptune. And I know Pluto has an element of this. So I need to kind of look in the astrology and see where this is being kind of amplified right now. But there is an element or an energy or a frequency of religiosity and dogma. And I know dogma has been something I've been talking about for the last few weeks because I can just feel it. And that word religiosity, I don't even know if that's a word, but that's how I hear it when I'm tuning into this energy. So it isn't about being in a divine communication or a divine relationship. It's about religiosity, rules, dogma, those kind of things. It's not about a true divine connection. Okay, so when they talk about religiosity, this isn't the religion that you're in. This is, are you following man-made rules or are you having a personal relationship? Okay, so that's kind of what I feel like when they're talking about religiosity. Because you guys, I love everyone, no matter what, but I'm telling you, there are some people that I call quote unquote Sunday Christians, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, but there are people who will go to church every single Sunday, never miss a service, but they are not very good people, right? So like, again, it's not a judgment. I'm just saying people can go to church thinking that they're doing the right thing, but if they're not living by faith, it's not the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So, I feel like my grandpa just popped in, and he used to tell me the best church was on the front porch. And he would smoke his pipe and drink coffee, like, because that's where he could talk to God the best. So that just made me a little emotional. My grandpa popped in real quick. Anyway, so then they said that the darkness is going to use this to their advantage. The darkness, the devil, the demons, they all will use anything to try to intimidate and make you afraid, right? But the Bible says over and over and over and over and over and over, do not fear, do not fear, do not fear. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of peace. Like, if you need to, go just look at do not fear in the Bible and look at what all comes up. Because you could do an entire year Bible study probably just on do not fear. Okay, now that being said, they said being saved by grace, protected by God, and having Jesus carry you is only part of the process. And when they said this, it was almost like Jesus will carry you in any time that you need to be carried, right? So any time that you need to be carried, he is there to carry you through. But at some point, it's like, buck up and walk, right? Like, I'm here right with you. I will hold your hand, but you can be a big kid now and walk. And I know I'm not trying to like play this down, but that's what they're saying is at some point you need to be strong enough to walk alongside instead of being carried. Now, being strong enough to walk beside is where you finally, this is where I talk about claiming divine authority. Now, this is never saying that you're anything other than what God is giving you the power to do, but we have to stop being afraid and we have to stop being victims to the darkness. Like, that is not what we're here for. We need to step up and have the courage to face them. And that's what they said. You were meant to have the courage of Daniel. So for those of you guys that are not on a biblical thing, because I know a lot of us are here with a Christian background, some of us are not, and there's no judgment either way. But so for those of you that don't know, Daniel was the one in the lion's den who would pray and had courage and in the face of like lions, right? So Daniel is a very good example of courage, not the only one by any means in the Bible. Actually, as I'm saying that, even my guides are saying, look up courage in the Bible. That would be a good thing to do, is look at courage. Okay, so that's the overall message. What I want to do now is look at these two questions, because again, I didn't feel like they went together, but now that I'm seeing it, I'm like, okay, I understand how this would be making sense that these two both tie together. So the question is about witches, basically. It says, I'm increasingly seeing references about like being witches, basically. And she said, these are wonderful, loving souls. Like, so I'm really wondering why this is showing up and why. She's like, I'm just ignoring the posts and comments where they talk about witchery and witches, but it's still kind of like, I want to know what you're thinking. And I said, okay, well, I just want to understand like what particularly is the question. And she said, am I being prejudiced? I want to be careful with what I explore. So she's just looking at like, what is this? So the question kind of is about like, is casting spells something? Like, am I getting hung up on the term witch? Like, this is kind of the question here. Okay. So here's the thing. There's so many different ways, and it's going to depend on each person who quote unquote thinks that they're a witch, right? Because I think that's a term that gets used in so many different ways. Regardless of any of the like guides that I worked with, the celestial beings that I worked with, they all have a reverence for God. They all have a reverence for God. And so we need to remember that God is the source of all. Now, yes, we have a God spark. We have a divine connection. But I feel like the difference for me personally would be, are they in their heart space working from God's source spirit, or are they thinking that they have power themselves? That really is where the difference comes in. Now, I've seen this even with Reiki healers. I've seen Reiki healers who completely only work with Jesus and the angels. They know that the power comes from the divine, that God is pouring into them the frequencies and the energy, and then they're just the tool that then does the healing process on this planet. But they know that the power is from God. But I've seen other healers who do Reiki that think that the power is coming from within them, and that they are creating their own energy. So be careful of like the terms. Words can be triggers, right? And it depends on how they're used, and it depends on what they're saying, and it depends on the source. So this is where discernment has to come in. Now, as far as spells, I'm not into any of that. I don't believe in spells. I don't believe in anything that would go against somebody else's free will. However, if you want to look at spell and just kind of break down that word, the word spelling is how we create, right? Because when we put letters together and we spell something, we actually create. So when we're praying, then it's like, okay, that could be interpreted as a spell. So it's getting out of the fear, right? And aligning. Now, again, even with a spell, are you going against somebody's free will? Are you trying to cast this onto someone or into your experience by your own power? Or are you praying and asking that this be created, that you know that this is all divine source, and you're just using your words in accordance with divine? Okay, that would be how I would explain that. I hope this is helpful and making sense. Again, you guys, it's always your own discernment, because we're all in different places. We're all in different spiritual paths. We're all at different levels of our learning and our own individual growth. So I kind of use this reference, and I kind of do it jokingly, but it's so true. Like, if you have trouble with alcohol, don't go into a bar, right? So if the idea of, like, I can hang out with quote unquote pagans, witches, whatever, it does not make me falter in my own personal relationship with God. I know that God is truth. I know that Jesus is here to help us. I know he came to this planet on purpose. I know he was crucified, right? Like, for me to have this divine life that I'm in right now. So for me, none of that shakes my own faith. But again, for you, if it's going to cause you to stumble or be wary or question, then just don't do it. Just don't, you don't need to, just remove yourself from those situations. There's nothing wrong with removing yourself through those situations if they're making you question. I would say do whatever it is for you that helps you be in alignment with divine truth and that you feel comfortable, right? So there's no judgment either way, which again is something my guides always talk about, is non-judgment, right? Which is hard to wrap your head around sometimes. Okay, so the next question is really more of a, like, this is what happened, what is this showing me kind of thing. And it said, I've had a couple of really scary dreams this weekend, but she has dreams in quotes, meaning that it felt like a real experience. Now, I would say this probably was kind of an ethereal experience. So that's why it didn't really feel like a dream, but also kind of felt real. So what happened was she had a dream that the devil was in her bedroom and she woke up and it was standing over her. She said it didn't say anything and didn't do anything. It was just standing there. And it was almost as if it was a costume and not the real devil. So I kept praying in my dream and asking angels and God and Jesus to clear my house. And it was like they were there, but they weren't doing anything. So then she woke up and she tried to calm herself back down. She fell back to sleep and went back into the same dream. She said, I was telling my husband about the dream, but we were still in the dream. So in her dream, she's imagining that she's telling her husband about it. They went to check on the girls, and you could see the hoof prints in the carpet, and the prints were there. And she screamed and commanded, I command you to leave my home and my family alone. But it was more like a roar when I said it. And when it walked out of another room, my husband and I both turned into lions and roared and chased it out of the house. So this was all just a dream, but she feels like it was a real experience. Now, there's so much to this. Like, first of all, I want to calm her down because she's like, I am so scared right now. Now, this is actually, you did a really good thing, right? You stood in divine authority and said, be gone, right? Now, when you first have these experiences, it's very shaky and it is very, like, it's scary, but I will tell you, you did the right thing. And that I really feel like you turning into lions showed you that you have divine authority and you do not need to be afraid. And so the next level of this will be, I command you out. I will not tolerate this BS in my house. Nothing but the highest and best divine light and love is allowed in my house, in my property, in my experience. And that's where it comes into the video I did the other day about why people believe the devil doesn't exist. Because when you stand in divine authority like that, then you can literally, like, they almost get bored. The darkness gets bored. The devil, the demons, they get bored of it. But again, guys, I just want to say, like I said in that video, that doesn't mean they're not there, right? So this is where spiritual hygiene comes in. This is where spiritual discipline comes in. This is where spiritually you need to be doing your work to keep yourself anchored and rooted in divine truth, knowing that you have divine authority and that the darkness cannot mess with you, and let go of the fear, which comes back to the message that they said about at some point you need to be strong enough to walk. I feel like this was your sign saying, yes, Jesus is with you. He is right behind you, but you can walk in your own faith. It's like a spiritual maturity level that was reached by understanding that you have the divine power. Like, stop being afraid, right? Now, again, not saying that you will never be afraid. I'm telling you guys, every once in a while there will be a situation where it rattles me a little bit. But again, I've learned to have spiritual discipline. And this is where, by the power of God in the name of Jesus Christ, I have divine authority. Jesus is at my side. The angels are with me, and Archangel Michael will come in and knock you down if you don't get out of my space, right? So like, and again, I'm kind of being a little bit funny about that, but like, you literally have to be in that space of, by the power of God in the name of Jesus, this is not happening in my territory, right? And this is a warrior, right? What just popped into my head was at Sunday school, we used to sing this song, I'm in the Lord's army. And it was like, I may never fly over, how did it go? I may never march in the infantry, shoot the artillery, fly over the enemy, right? Like, it was saying I may not be in that kind of army, but I'm in the Lord's army, and I'm going to stand my ground for God. So I hope you guys are seeing how those both play in together. I feel like really that is the darkness trying to be a little bit manipulative, going, ooh, you better be afraid of this. These witches are going to get you off your spiritual path. You're not going to be strong enough, right? And then the darkness coming in, trying to get you afraid, like, oh my God, I'm just this miserable sinner and I have no authority and the devil's going to come and get me. And you're like, hell no, he's not. This is my children and I will protect them with every fiber of my being, right? And now we're kind of stepping into this new spiritual authority where I'm standing my ground. I will not falter. I know divine truth. I know love is true. And I know that there's a lot of people who are afraid around me. But if I can hold the line, if I can hold that frequency, if I can hold that courage and know that in divine truth that everything's okay and that God's got my back and that Jesus is at my side, then the rest of it, it's like, it can't bother you, right? So I hope this message makes sense for you guys. I hope it answers both of the questions. For those of you guys that submitted those, if you want to message me privately and let me know, it feels really powerful, you guys. And it was interesting getting the message when I sat down with Mary and Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, and Samuel, because it just felt so powerful and so comforting at the same time, right? So I'm just gonna read the message to kind of tie this up, because I feel like I want to, it just feels right to read this again. There is an element of religiosity in the air. The darkness will try to use this energy to their advantage. Until one can truly understand their divine authority, the darkness can manipulate and intimidate. Being saved by grace and protected by God, having Jesus carry you, is only part of the process. At some point, you need to be strong enough to walk alongside instead of being carried. You are meant to have the courage of Daniel. So, sending you guys lots of love.